Hey people, this amateur jeweler found this ring, had this mark in it. He thought this was gold plated copper. Didn't recognize this mark, so he posted it up on here to get some ideas. And somebody said, I don't think that's copper, I think that's gold, and had him test it. And he found out, oh, maybe it is gold. And he tested, he seen, well, it's at least 14 karat. That's all the acid he had to tell with. You know, you scratch some off and you put this acid on it, and if it dissolves it, then it's not up to that quality. If it's enough gold in there, you know, you can see it through the acid. But one of these jewelers had remembered seeing this and posted this, and it won't let me go back to it now. But it was an old hallmark, and it looked like this, and it has a little serpent in it. And that's what these extra loops are here. And when I click on it, I can't show you that anymore. I find out that I've been banned for explaining that this sign comes up in Genesis 2 as gold. It's the common sign for all your secret societies. But these hallmarks, that's all they are, is the place of origin. You know, Tiffany. And that's what it's talking about here in the land of evil. I tell you is it to crucian. And that's what this crucian means. It doesn't mean gold. It means that mark, you know, and the gold of that land, you know. And so that's the mark of the place to the crucian of this this location. So I've been reading in this Greek last couple movies, and 2 movies ago I read these first 8 lines. And I'll leave a link at the end to these. This series starts, I was reading in Genesis in the Greek, the Ark of the Covenant found. And it's a couple movies. It's about time is what it's talking about. When Thoth created time, the birth of Zeus. And I'll leave the link to this last one up here right now. And I cover these first 7 lines in it. The next movie I skipped on down to the birth of woman. But I'll cover it again as I go through. But I'm going to start here at 8. And so it says on the top of 2, it says, you know, you just completed the sundial. A wedge of a phase of cosmoseton. It's showing you how to build your charts. And it tells how to mirror it to finish out your chart. And then it starts telling a story of how to fill everything in its time by blows. You know, by blows are time and direction, by the blow, by the winds. And then it comes down here to split it. You know, he shapes man, and then he plants the garden. And this is where it splits it into the 4 rivers. And you can see these 4 rivers, they're the ones that's symboled by this rope here, by these ropes. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 rivers. And you can see they're not symmetrical, but we're not the center of the universe. And these are lines showing the lines of the universe. They're actually circles that go around. And you can see on this newer model, it looks like they removed one. You got one between Pisces and Aquarius. You got one between Taurus and Gemini. And so I know that's the Milky Way. You know, the Taurus has got his nose right up in the Milky Way. You got one between Virgo and Libra. And it's this one between Scorpio and Sagittarius you don't see. You know, this is Taurus here, and then the Milky Way running on its nose between Gemini. And goes down to Canis, Argo Navis, the Crew, the Cross, and comes back up between Scorpio and Sagittarius. So this is the Milky Way that runs through here, and this is the ecliptic that runs through here. You know, it's over here between Pisces and Aquarius. So soon they'll be moving this one over here. So it looks like, you know, the other side of the Milky Way that they left out over here. You know, this ecliptic's moving. The same is going to change the other side of Aquarius over here. It's going to move back to the other side of Virgo. And you can see that change here. You know, the ecliptic is now in Virgo. But it's moving this way toward Leo. And it'll be over here in Leo soon, as the other side goes down below Pisces and ends up more over here in Aquarius. And that's this globe you see all the alchemists carrying. This is the Milky Way here, and this is the ecliptic. This is the axis. And all them preachers say there is no astrology in the Bible. The only other books you find written in Hebrew are about astrology. And so the last line in Genesis 2:7, it was to placing of the Austin man, or the Austin on there upon shown the Laban. And so the Austin is the 0 hour. The Austin is the east. This is a change of OSTON and OSTHN. And so one of them's the point and one of them's the motion. And so it seems like, this is the point and the THN will be the motion. So it's telling first place the Austin. And so the Austin is this point at this cross here at Easter. And this would be the place upon, this is Eve. And he named her Zeus because she was the mother of all life. And so all life, comes out of the Austin, coming from the east. And on their oppose is his psyche. The psyche on turns, and thought on turns. And so that would be the opposite side of the Austin, is the birth of thought, star of thought. The thought on turns. And then this 2:8, it starts with this word equity. And that comes from the word equal, and equities in, is its equivalent in a dollar value, or the center of the tree. The Q is the center, and a Libra, the Q is the center, and he balances on each side. The center, what, who's in. And so the equities in of those parade, that's somebody who puts all their gold on. The equities of those who parade is on. The parade is on. And this got me thinking that the center was Ison. That's that comet that was coming around 2012. They found it. They'll say that these Russians had found it, and so they called it Ison because they found it at the International Scientific Optical Network. But it doesn't translate out to Ison. If the Russians had named it, and I don't read any Russian at all. I know these letters fool me a lot, but it looks like it would have been the MHOC instead of the ISON. So you have to question everything Wikipedia tells you. If it don't make sense, don't file it. And equities in of those parade is on. Para, over the days on. The parade is on. And they all marching by. In Eden, in Eden is in need, the need in. According to on it all as to edit, EDET, the edit to, a key, and here it on thereupon, on the place, not the shape but the place. And so all these ends, most of these ends in here are reading as V's, the ones that are followed by E. The only way that's an N is when there's no E after it. So this is actually a V here too. This is a V here. And so the equities in of those over days of have then, THEN, of have then, according to on it all as to edit, EDET, the edit to edit to. And so this actually reading is a ELE, and it means the lay, is the position where it's at. And that's why you see in the Spanish, a key means here, and it's only, if you're pointing at that place, the lay, and where it's at, where your ball landed. And the edit to, the lay it on thereupon, on the place. And so everything gets edited from the Austin point. When you're looking at these stars, everything gets measured off the 0 point here in hours. And that's where they get these hours over here. They start 0 at the crossing, at the ecliptic. And this is how we could tell the times when parts of the Bible was written, because they're telling us how far these stars were from the ecliptic. And they'll tell us that equities come from French, meaning uniformity, impartiality, or fairness, coming from equality. And so you can read all these N's as N's, but then come back and read them as V's. And you see I missed this one. This isn't on the place because it starts with an E here. It's of the place. And so of means that was in the past, where you come from, of. And equities of those, parade is of, have then according to on it all as to edit to the lay it on thereupon of the place. Edit from of that place. And vex, the VEX, the vex, to stir up. And the vex on it, hyalin. This is HILE, ancient word for matter, of the matter. And vex on it, the matter in of those, a tile, tilets. And so it's trying to look like the same word here, and it comes up later down here when he put the man in the garden and give him charge of it. It's the entitlement too. Entitlement. So the vex is the changing, the shake. And vex on a tile, and given the one entitlement of those tilets, the ones that have the ability to have entitlement of those tilets. Of those tilets, it's sedges. And so sedges, they grow on the edge all around the earth, from all the earth, you see it say often. So the sedges grow right on the edge of the water and the land, and it's where your word edges comes from. And vex on it hyalin of those tilets edges upon the Zulon, and that's what they'll say is cross most of the time. Anything made of wood or the trunk of a tree used to support the crossbar of a cross. And it's the edges upon the Zulon, the X will on Orion his Arazen. Orion is a raisin, beautiful in sight. And so that means, Orion is a raise. 2,000 years ago, Orion would have been sitting lower down over here. This is Taurus. This is the age of Noah when Easter was here. This is the Milky Way, runs through here. So it was beautiful because, this was signifying summer was coming. The vex have a tile, the stir have it matter in. Of those tilets, the ones that can be entitled to, the king's sons, tilets edges, the entitle on the edges upon the cross will on Orion his horizon, the beautiful in sight. Here comes summer, and call on his bros in, call all his bros, and talks will on this. And talk about it with his bros. Zoos. Zoos are all the animals. All the Chinese houses all the houses of the moon. All in animals. And call on his bros in two talks will on this of Zoe. The Eve. Zeus in the turning Susan. From his odd of parody is of. So it changes up from the N, and the parody is of. All the animals and the kings in the sky, a parody of up over the days of. And so all the Bible, it's a parody of the heavens, of the days of, and talks will on, talks, T-O-X, and talks, taxonomy, put everything in its class. And talks will on to will on it of hide, and HIDE, not hide, not to know, not hidden, the knows it on, the call of upon or of, to call upon the gods of the day, the call upon or of good and evil. So when you're hungry, you could call on the bros in, call on your boys. But when you want the identity, the identity to know, and to know the knowing, that's gone Austin. Gone Austin. East. It's gone eastin'. So in Genesis 2, they knew about the precession of equinox. And the knowledge is it's traveling east. And so it says to hide not the knowledge of precession, the call of upon a row. And things like the old Ponero, that's the same word they use for the Pope. But just means of, of, up, on, her, of, the call upon her of. And so this is the name of the gods. So it's good to know the name, the call of, but it's evil to know upon where it belongs, upon or of. And this bruise here comes from ambrosia. They say it means the food of the gods, ambrosia. And so it looked like the gods drink the wine, the bruise in. It's where the word Hebrews comes from, the brewery, alchemy. And the call on his bruise in to talk swill on this Susan, it turns me sought of what we is looking for. And it turns me sought of, parodies of. And talks will on to hide not. And so they say nay means yes in Greek. And that's the biggest clue that they're lying about everything. They had to change the word yes and no in order to force the meaning on here. But it plainly means not here. To know something is hide not. Put it out in the open, to hide not. The nostin, the call on upon her of. And so if you go down to the river, you always have to go down to the river. The river's only up when it's in the heavens, And so you're reading this P as the bottom as, except it doesn't mean the bottom. It just means the valley of the Milky Way, the bottom as. And this is where your word hippopotamus comes from. They'll say a hippo is a horse and a potamus is the river. And that's some of the language creation after. But the hippopotamus, that was Virgo in Egypt. It was the birthing mother of all the gods. And this is where you'll find the full moon at, when the sun is in Orion, when it raises in Orion. And the water's actually coming from this wet, W-E-T-A-J, wettage. To pour the wettage. And so, the bottom as is the potom has when it's in the heavens, pouring out the Milky Way. The potom has. And this is a E-L, and you see it in many words today. Del, Rio del Mar, the river to the ocean, Rio del Mar. And it's actually reading, the T-H-E is here, and the E-K reading is the L, meaning of, and the of. And so if you were proper English, it's the bottom has the of, poor wettage. And so what it means is they didn't know what the ancient idol carvers named that animal, but they call it the bottom has. And she wears a crown that looks like 10 to 12 serpents surrounding a bowl. And it appears, she was holding something here and nursing here. And I would bet it was the Horus child. And they call her How2Read, which is, I believe is wrong. If you watch my Egyptian stuff, I believe this is the L. And it means the tell where, W-R-T. The tell where it enter, N-T-R. The tell where it enter. She's one that tells where it's enter. With dual meanings, hippopotamuses are badder than crocodiles. And so the Englishmen that wrote this Greek Bible, they didn't know what the Egyptians called this. All they knew is had a pod on her head, the pod on her. And when the Romans got there, they just thought that this was just too disgusting to be God. They didn't like the looks at that at all. They didn't want that to be the mother of all life, Eve. Sitting over here with the center of attention. And so they took Appease and put a pot on his head and made it human. Appease was the old bull that they were supposed to make happy. And so they throwed a pot up on this guy, called him Serapis, so they wouldn't have to worship animals anymore. And so he's the bottom has. and then later evolved into Jesus. And the bottom has the of pores wedage. It's seedin, ETSEDN. It's seedin, the pod is in. It's seed in, the pod is in. And the seed has been watered. And the bottom has the of pores wedage. A seed as pod is in. As pod is in it on. Parade is on. Elitin. A quarries it idge his. Tessie are as arches. And so this is where the word for comes from. This is a quarry. And it means a square, a quarry. A quarry, Z, means to cut. A quarries. And itage is the thing you own, the stone that you cut out. The elitin, I'll tell you this K, I'll tell you this, the E after it caused it to become an L. And I think it just evolved in the other language. But they're reading it as a key, as here, and then, at that time, from, is then. And here then, here at this time. But, here at this time, that was the elite. And, this is at the beginning, and it was just the gods of light creating, And so the elite they were, the light in. The ones that were here then, from the beginning, the gods of light. The parodies of elite in a quarries it idge, to separate the light. And this are his tessie, are. This is read as I believe, but either way, in the Greek, let's say this means to collect, in the R, the collector, and the collector, and the light in a quarries it idge his collector as arches. The arch is over, but this is the word that they give in the beginning and created in the Greek Bible. And I go more into that in that movie here for the Ark of the Covenant. And that's where that word comes from, the ark, the sources. And it comes where the word secrets, the arches. And it looks like here that they're blending it with this S, as in searches, and the collector as searches. The bottom has the of pores wedage. Its seed and pot is in it on parodies of elitin. A quarries it tidge his tesser as arches, and separates out the light, and separates out his tesser is the four arches, the collector arches. And so that would be more of Saturn there. This whole page, this is to Saturday, Saturn. And Saturn's the god talking here. He's the god that created all the beginning of it, and then set time in motion as Saturn. And so I try not to make this too confusing, but in Egypt, when you double up the letter there, the second one becomes the I. It's where I get this Tezi from. And so this actually reads, the bottom has in TH, the THEIL, and the bottom has they will, they'll pour wedage. And so it's more than one. It's seed and potties in it on para over the days on. The parade is of the day, the DEY, the day of. And over the days of the lay then, the lay, that place at that time, the lighten. A quarries it tidge, his, the collector, the tezier of searches. And so it's talking about the four here, four triples here. And so it gives us clues to hint, each four is going to give clues to hint to its other part of its tribe. And you look closer and you see, there's an extra, they don't fit here, and it's the info. And it's, the seed info, ENFO, the info ties in it on the parodies of a light in a quarries itage, his tesser a searches. And so it's going to tease this word, and it's going to twist up several different ways in here. Never the same. But, this is not the name. This is a motto. And so it's onomato. Ancient word, it means that thing written down at the bottom of your seal, the motto. And the crest, that'll be up here at the top, that's the Cretan. And onomato in a phison, and this means, to give advice. And it comes from the word if, if is on, and that's when you're giving some advice. Well, if you did this, and if is on. And onomato in a phison, otus, that's the evil eye, otus. And it's often drawn as a serpent on a planet that is most likely Venus. And that is, the main advisor, the one that is cycles, CUIC, the cycle on a percent, the percent engine, a percent engine, the slide rule. The engine is, the round slide rules, and the one you figure up your percentages on. How much will it affect? And just like the rest of the time, call and phase is used. They say it's all, but it's not all. It's all in that color, or all in that phase, or all in that percentage, in that percentage in. And so evil, E-V-I-L, the evil at, comes from the will at. If your kid, he's got some will in him, you think it's evil. That's the will at. The will at the lay, at a key, at here. The will at the lay of. Is it to the Crucian? And so the Crucian cross, but it also means like the excretion. It's the best that city has to offer is its Crucian. And so gold, its Crucian, might be cheese. It's the Crucian, the one that rose up on top. The motto's on the bottom and the Crucian's on the top. It's your finished product after you done did all your distilling, everything you're going to do to it. It's what you were trying to end up, It's what you are working toward. It's what you wanted your final product to be. It's Crucian. You'll see it on every ancient treasure map in the world. It doesn't mean gold. It means, your destination. And you always have to distill it out. It's never easy. You got to distill out the path. And SpongeBob SquarePants probably reads ancient Hebrew and Greek better than your rabbi. And nobody in the know wants to let this information leak out. You get banned from their page. So I want to look at the King James before we go. And sure enough, that's what it says. For all of you creationists, Adam called his wife Eve because she was the mother of all living. Not humans. Everything living evolved from Eve. And so it seems like, if people just didn't go to church and listen to what somebody else says about the Bible and just read it themselves, it seems like there's a lot of truth in there, but we've been brainwashed to believe that this actually means something else other than what it says. And the ancient poets that read the ancient languages, the Greek and the Hebrew, they had some accusations, but it was mostly for destroying the poetry. But, for the dust thou art, return to the ground for which out of it was taken. So everything evolved from Eve. All plant, animal, bacteria, mother of all living. But yeah, there's no way you could figure this out by reading the King James, what it's talking about, unless you had already knew what the host of them meant. And you would only know that seventh meant the bottom if it was talking about the sky man that's upside down. But I'll put this in the next movie and I'll show you where this motto, it keeps on going, but it's actually not motto here. It's on top, and onomatopa tomato, a top to motto. And this is going to be the woman here, the utero, the second, the woman. And the third don't get a motto. He's just on a bottom has of 3. Alright, that'll be the next video. I'm going to cut this off here. Good day.
I am the Antichrist, and I approve of this message.